Welcome to Forgotten Hours. Tonight you will wander into the silent sands of Sistan, where the ruins of the burnt city still whisper beneath the desert sky. For 5,000 years, these walls of clay and ash have held their secrets. Now, let the stillness guide you. Breathe slowly and allow the story to carry you toward peace and rest. Twilight over the Silent City. Chapter 1. Awakening in the Desert of Sistan. You breathe, and with each breath, the world around you grows quieter, softer. The desert of Sistan stretches endlessly before you, a canvas of gold and amber that shifts with the gentle wind. You feel the sand beneath your feet, warm but not burning, welcoming you into this ancient land where time moves differently, where moments stretch like honey in the morning sun. The dawn light filters through the air like liquid silk, casting everything in hues of rose and copper. You walk slowly, your footsteps barely disturbing the pristine surface of the dunes. Each grain of sand holds a story, a whisper of the countless souls who have crossed this desert before you. Merchants with caravans heavy with silk and spices, pilgrims seeking sacred places, nomads following the ancient rhythms of the seasons. In the distance, emerging like a mirage from the shimmering heat, you see them, the ruins of Shahr-e Sukhteh, the burnt city. They rise from the desert floor like the bones of some great sleeping creature, patient, eternal, waiting for you to discover their secrets. The mud brick walls catch the morning light, glowing with an inner warmth that seems to pulse with the heartbeat of history itself. You pause and listen. The silence here is not empty. It is full, pregnant with the echoes of 5,000 years. You can almost hear them, the voices of potters shaping clay at their wheels, children laughing in narrow alleyways, merchants calling out their wares in the great marketplace, the gentle splash of oars in the Hirmand River. All of this floats on the desert air like incense, barely perceptible, but undeniably present. The wind touches your face with fingers soft as silk, carrying with it the scent of sage and ancient earth, of fires that burned long ago, of gardens that once bloomed where now only sand remains. You close your eyes for a moment, and when you open them, the city seems closer, as if it has been walking toward you while you stood in contemplation, beckoning you forward with invisible hands. Your journey begins now, in this liminal space between sleep and waking, between past and present, between the solid earth beneath your feet and the infinite sky above. You are neither fully here nor there, but suspended in the gentle embrace of this timeless moment, where the boundaries between dreamer and dream begin to dissolve. The sand shifts beneath your feet as you walk, creating small avalanches that whisper down the faces of the dunes. Each step takes you deeper into the story, deeper into the mystery. The sun climbs higher in the sky, but its heat seems to come from within, the very stones of the ancient city, as if the buildings themselves are remembering the warmth of the hands that built them, the love that went into every carefully placed brick. You notice, as you draw closer, how the light plays across the weathered surfaces, creating shadows that seem to move independently, dancing their own ancient choreography. The walls rise around you now, not threatening, but protective, like the arms of a grandmother, drawing you close to hear old stories told in hushed tones by flickering lamplight. The entrance to the city appears before you, an opening in the wall worn smooth by countless hands, countless shoulders that have brushed against its edges. You pause at the threshold, feeling the weight of the moment, the significance of crossing from the known desert into the unknown mysteries that lie beyond. But there is no fear here, only a deep sense of homecoming, as if you are returning to a place you have always known. Even if you have never been here before, you step through and the quality of the air changes, becomes cooler, more intimate. The walls embrace you now, drawing you into their ancient confidence. The city unfolds before you, like a scroll being carefully unrolled, revealing its secrets one layer at a time, street by street, house by house, memory by memory. The ground beneath your feet is no longer shifting sand, but packed earth, hardened by millennia of footsteps, worn smooth by the passage of countless generations. You can feel their presence in the stone, in the very air you breathe. They walk beside you now, invisible companions, sharing their city, their home, their dreams. Above you, the sky has deepened from the pale gold of dawn to the deeper blue of morning. Clouds drift lazily overhead, casting moving shadows that play across the ruins like fingers trailing through water. The light here is different from the harsh glare of the open desert, filtered through invisible veils, softened by the presence of so much history, so much love, so much life that has been lived within these walls. You walk deeper into the city, your pace unhurried, meditative. There is no destination here, only the journey itself, only the gentle unfolding of wonder. You pass empty doorways that once framed busy lives, windows that once looked out on thriving streets. You imagine the sounds that once filled these spaces, the laughter, the music, the quiet conversations that lasted deep into the star-filled nights. A fragment of pottery lies at your feet. Azure blue, with intricate patterns that speak of skilled hands and patient hours. You kneel to examine it more closely, running your fingers along its smooth edges, feeling the ridges left by the potter's wheel, the gentle imperfections that make it human, beautiful, real. In this small piece of clay, you can see the entire civilization, the care with which they crafted their daily lives, the artistry they brought to the simplest tasks. The wind moves through the ruins, creating soft sounds, like distant conversation, like whispered prayers, like lullabies sung to children, long since returned to dust. But they are not sad, these sounds. They are peaceful, content, filled with the deep satisfaction of lives fully lived, of stories completely told, of dreams fulfilled in their own time and way. You rise, leaving the pottery where you found it, understanding somehow that it belongs here, in this place, part of the greater story that the city continues to tell. You continue walking, your footsteps joining the rhythm of all those who have walked here before, adding your own small verse to the endless poem that is Shahr-e Sukhteh. The streets wind and curve, following patterns that seem random but reveal themselves to be deeply intentional. Each turn opening onto new vistas, new perspectives, new possibilities for wonder. You realize that this is not just a city, but a kind of mandala, a sacred geometry made manifest in mud and stone, designed to guide the walker ever deeper into contemplation, ever closer to some essential truth. Light falls through the ruins in shafts, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny spirits, like the souls of the departed enjoying one last dance in the morning sun. The air shimmers with their movement, creating a sense of aliveness that transcends the apparent emptiness. This city is not dead. You realize it has simply changed, transformed from a place of bodies to a place of spirits, from a home for the living to a sanctuary for memory itself. Your breathing has become deeper, slower, synchronized with the ancient rhythms that pulse through this place. You feel your heart rate slowing, matching the patient tempo of geological time, of archaeological layers, of stories that unfold not in minutes or hours, but in centuries, in millennia. There is no hurry here, no urgency, only the gentle persistence of stone and sand, of wind and sun, of time itself. A doorway catches your attention, different from the others, still partially intact, with intricate carvings around its frame, stylized flowers, geometric patterns, symbols whose meanings have been lost, but whose beauty remains eternally fresh. You approach slowly, reverently, feeling like a pilgrim approaching a shrine. The carvings seem to pulse with their own inner light, as if the very act of creation had imbued them with something that transcends the material. You reach out, your fingers hovering just above the stone, not quite touching, but feeling the energy that radiates from these ancient marks. The craftsman who carved them has been gone for thousands of years, but something of his spirit, his intention, his love for his work, remains embedded in every line, every curve, every carefully considered detail. Through the doorway, you glimpse an interior space, partially collapsed, but still recognizable as having once been someone's home. Niches in the walls where lamps once burned, depressions in the floor where cooking fires warmed meals and hearts. You can almost see them, the family who lived here, going about their daily routines, unaware that their simple domestic acts would one day be studied by archaeologists, romanticized by poets, dreamed about by visitors from distant futures. The mother, grinding grain in the early morning light, humming softly to herself. The father, returning from the fields along the Hirmand, dust on his sandals, satisfaction in his weathered hands. Children playing games whose rules are now forgotten, but whose laughter still echoes in the spaces between the stones. Their cat, sleek and proud, winding around their legs, demanding attention, offering the kind of uncomplicated love that transcends species, transcends time. You step back from the doorway, not wanting to intrude, understanding that some spaces are too sacred for casual exploration. But you carry with you now the image, the sense, the feeling of that long-ago family. They have become part of your story now, just as your presence here becomes part of theirs. Time is not linear in this place. Past and present flow together like streams converging into a single river. The sun has climbed higher, and with it the temperature has begun to rise. But the heat here is not oppressive. It is the heat of life, of growth, of the eternal dance between sun and earth that makes all existence possible. You feel it soaking into your skin, into your bones, warming you from the inside out, connecting you to the great cycles that govern all life, all time, all being. You continue your wandering exploration, each step taking you deeper into the mystery, deeper into the meditation. The city seems to expand around you, revealing new passages, new chambers, new opportunities for wonder. A courtyard opens before you, circular, with what might once have been a fountain at its center. The space feels different, more intimate, more intentional. You imagine community gatherings here, celebrations, ceremonies, moments when the entire neighborhood came together to mark the passing of seasons, the milestones of life, the great transitions that give meaning to human existence. The walls of the courtyard are higher than those you have encountered before, creating a sense of enclosure, of protection, of being held in the gentle embrace of something larger than yourself. Above, the sky forms a perfect circle, framing clouds and light like a living mandala, ever-changing but eternally present. You sit, finding a place where ancient stones offer comfortable support. You close your eyes and listen. The sounds of the desert return, but muted now, filtered through this city's embrace. The wind moves differently here, channeled by walls and passages into something that might almost be music, a gentle symphony performed by air and stone, composed by time itself. In this stillness, in this silence that is full of sound, you begin to understand something essential about this place. It is not a ruin in the conventional sense. It is a teaching, a meditation made manifest in stone and clay, an invitation to slow down, to listen, to remember what it means to be human, to be mortal, to be part of something infinitely larger than your individual existence. The meditation deepens. Your breathing becomes almost imperceptible. Your heartbeat slows to match the patient rhythm of the earth itself. You are no longer merely visiting this ancient city. You are becoming part of it. joining the great conversation that has been continuing here for 5 millennia, adding your voice to the chorus, your presence to the prayer. Time dissolves, minutes, hours, centuries, all become equally meaningful, equally present. The sun continues its ancient journey across the sky, but you are no longer tracking its progress, no longer measuring duration. You exist now in the eternal present, the timeless now that connects all moments, all experiences, all beings across the vast expanse of history. A city breathes around you, its rhythm slow and deep, like the breathing of someone in profound sleep or profound meditation. The walls expand and contract almost imperceptibly, as if the entire structure were alive, were conscious, were aware of your presence and welcoming you into its eternal dream. Fragments of the past begin to surface in your awareness, not as memories, for they are not your memories, but as emanations, as whispers from the stones themselves. You see, or feel, or somehow experience glimpses of the life that once flourished here. The busy workshops where craftspeople created objects of stunning beauty. The markets where goods from across the known world changed hands. The temples where prayers rose like incense into the desert sky. A young potter, her hands sure and gentle on the clay, shaping vessels that will survive long after their creator has returned to dust. A merchant, calculating profits and losses, but also dreaming of distant cities, exotic spices, stories to tell his children. A priest, tending sacred flames, maintaining the connection between earth and sky, between human and divine, between the temporary and the eternal. These visions, these visitations, flow through your consciousness like a gentle stream. They do not demand attention, do not insist on interpretation. They simply are, offering themselves as gifts, as reminders of the continuity that connects all human experience, all human longing, all human love across the centuries. The sun has reached its zenith now, and light falls directly into the courtyard, creating sharp shadows and brilliant illuminations. The contrast is dramatic, but not harsh. Instead, it serves to highlight the sculptural quality of the ruins, the way time and weather have carved them into something that transcends their original function, transforming them into art, into poetry, into prayer made visible. You open your eyes, but the meditation continues. The state of awareness you have achieved, this deep listening, this profound presence, continues to inform your experience. You see the city now not just as it is, but as it has been, as it will be, as it exists in the eternal realm where all possibilities coexist, where all stories are simultaneously true. Rising slowly, mindfully, you continue your exploration, but now you move with the rhythm of the place, your pace synchronized with its ancient heartbeat. You are no longer a visitor, no longer an observer. You have become part of the ongoing story, part of the living meditation that is Shahr-e Sukhteh, The streets lead you onward, deeper into the city's heart. Each step reveals new wonders, new opportunities for contemplation. The journey has become a pilgrimage, a sacred walk through time itself. And you understand that every footfall is a prayer, every breath a blessing, every moment of awareness a gift beyond measure. The wind carries new scents now, hints of spices that once perfumed these streets, echoes of cooking fires that once warmed these homes, suggestions of flowers that once bloomed in gardens now returned to sand. The past becomes present through the generosity of imagination, through the willingness to believe that some things, the most important things, never truly die, but continue to exist in the spaces between moments, in the silence between heartbeats, in the love that connects all beings across time and space. And as the first chapter of your journey through the burnt city draws to a close, you understand that you are not simply walking through ruins. You are walking through dreams made manifest, through hopes and fears transformed into clay and stone, through the eternal human story of building, loving, losing, and beginning again. The city embraces you now, claims you as its own, and promises that the deeper mysteries, the more profound revelations await you in the chapters yet to come. The sun continues its eternal dance across the desert sky, and you continue yours through the sacred streets of Shahr-e Sukhteh. Both of you participants in the great choreography of existence. Both of you essential notes in the vast symphony that plays continuously in the spaces between silence and sound, between memory and dream, between what was and what is and what will always be. Chapter 2: Houses of Clay and Ashes. You find yourself drawn deeper into the labyrinthine streets of the ancient city. The walls around you seem to pulse with memories, each mud brick telling its own story of hands that shaped it, of fires that baked it, of years that weathered it into something approaching poetry. You walk slowly, reverently, your footsteps echoing softly in the narrow passages that wind between the homes of people who lived and loved and dreamed 5,000 years ago. The morning light has shifted now, becoming more golden, more intimate. It filters down between the partially collapsed walls, creating patterns of light and shadow that seem to dance with your movement, to respond to your presence, as if the very city itself is awakening to share its secrets with you, to guide you through its most sacred spaces, the private realms where families once gathered, where children learned their first words, where old ones spoke their last. You pause before a doorway lower than modern entrances, designed for people whose lives were lived closer to the earth, closer to the fundamental rhythms that govern all existence. The threshold is worn smooth, polished by countless crossings, countless comings and goings, countless moments of departure and return. You can almost feel them, all those who have passed this way, their hopes and fears, their joys and sorrows, their simple human need for shelter, for belonging, for home. Stepping through, you enter what was once someone's dwelling. The roof has long since disappeared, returned to the dust from which it came. But the walls remain, patient guardians of memories, witnesses to scenes of domestic tenderness that no historian will ever record, no archaeologist will ever fully understand. These are the small moments, the quiet revelations. The quiet revelations, the gentle intimacies that make up the true substance of human existence. The floor beneath your feet is made of packed earth, hardened by use, worn smooth by the daily activities of a household. You can imagine the woman of the house sweeping this floor each morning, her movements methodical, meditative, finding in this simple task a moment of peace, a connection to the rhythm of the days, to the cycle of seasons, to the eternal dance between order and chaos that defines all life. In one corner, a depression in the floor marks where a cooking fire once burned, where meals were prepared with love and patience, where stories were told while the pot simmered, where the family gathered as darkness fell and the desert grew cold. You kneel beside this ancient hearth, placing your palm flat against the earth, feeling still, after all these centuries, the ghost of warmth, the echo of flames, bringing light and heat and life to this simple space. The walls bear marks, scratches, indentations, signs of a life fully lived. A nail hole where perhaps a treasured possession once hung, a smooth patch where someone habitually leaned while watching the cooking, considering the day's events, planning tomorrow's work. Children's handprints, pressed into the soft clay while it was still malleable, now preserved forever, eternal testimony to young lives, to growth, to the irrepressible human impulse to leave a mark, to say, I was here. All those whispered prayers and quiet hopes. Moving to another room, you discover what might have been a sleeping area. The floor here is slightly raised, designed to keep the family dry during the seasonal floods. Practical, but also somehow ceremonial, recognizing sleep as sacred, as necessary, as the time when the conscious mind rests and the soul travels to distant realms of dream and possibility. Niches in the walls, carefully carved, once held oil lamps that pushed back the darkness, that transformed this simple space into something warm, something welcoming, something that could truly be called home. You can almost see them, the soft light flickering against the walls, creating shadows that moved like living things, like friendly spirits keeping watch over the sleeping family. A small window, really just an opening in the wall, frames a view of the desert beyond. During the day, it would have brought light into the room. During the night, it would have offered glimpses of stars, of the moon's changing face, of the vast cosmos that surrounded and embraced this small outpost of human habitation. The family who lived here would have fallen asleep, looking up at those same constellations, would have made wishes on the same shooting stars, would have felt the same sense of wonder, of connection to something infinitely larger than themselves. You lean against the window frame, looking out at the desert that stretches endlessly beyond the city walls. The view has changed little in 5 millennia. The same sand dunes roll like frozen waves toward the horizon. The same wind sculpts their surfaces into ever-changing patterns. The same sun traces its ancient path across the sky. This continuity is somehow reassuring, a reminder that despite all the changes, all the civilizations that have risen and fallen, some things remain constant, some things endure. But your attention is drawn back inside, to the more intimate mysteries that these walls contain. In another room, you find evidence of craft, of creativity, of the human need to transform raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. Pottery shards lie scattered across the floor, fragments of vessels that once held grain, water, oil, wine. Each piece is decorated with intricate patterns, geometric designs that speak of mathematical understanding, of aesthetic sensibility, of the desire to make even the most functional objects beautiful. You gather a few of the larger fragments, handling them with infinite care, marveling at the skill evident in their creation. The clay has been refined, purified, transformed through fire into something that could survive the centuries. These anonymous potters were artists, though they probably never thought of themselves in such terms. They were simply people doing their work, but doing it with such love, such attention, such devotion that their creations transcend mere utility and achieve something approaching the eternal. The patterns painted on the pottery are mesmerizing, spirals that seem to draw the eye inward, towards some central mystery, geometric shapes that repeat and vary with mathematical precision, stylized animals and plants that capture the essence of life in a few elegant strokes. These are not random decorations, you realize, but visual prayers, meditations made manifest, attempts to capture and express the underlying patterns that govern all existence. Setting the pottery fragments carefully back where you found them, you continue your exploration. Moving from room to room, you begin to understand the layout of these ancient homes, the way they were designed not just for shelter, but for living, for the complex interactions of family life, for privacy when needed, for gathering when desired, for the seasonal celebrations that marked the passage of time, for the quiet moments of individual contemplation that every soul requires. The houses here were not built quickly, not thrown together for mere convenience. Each wall was carefully planned, each room thoughtfully proportioned, each detail considered for its impact on the daily lives of the inhabitants. These were people who understood that the spaces we inhabit shape our thoughts, our feelings, our relationships, our very souls. They built not just houses, but homes, not just shelter, but sanctuaries. You pause in what might have been a central courtyard, open to the sky, where the family would have gathered in the evening when the desert heat had subsided, where children would have played while adults talked, where the day's work would have been reviewed and the next day's plans made. The space is small, intimate, designed to bring people together rather than separate them, to encourage conversation, connection, community. A well, since dry, sits at the center of the courtyard, its circular opening like an eye looking down into the earth's depths. Water, the most precious commodity in this desert land, would have been drawn here daily, would have determined the rhythm of household life. Its availability, a constant prayer. Its presence, a blessing to be celebrated, never taken for granted. You imagine the sound that water made, falling from bucket to jar. A sweet music of liquid abundance in a land where scarcity was always possible, always threatening. The family would have gathered around this well each morning and evening, sharing the work of drawing water, but also sharing the quiet satisfaction of this essential task, this communion with the earth's hidden gifts. Around the courtyard, doorways lead to other rooms, other spaces, each with its own purpose, its own character, its own contribution to the complex symphony of family life. A storage room where grain was kept in large ceramic jars, where the harvest was preserved against lean times, where abundance was carefully hoarded and gratefully shared. The walls here are thick, designed to keep the precious contents cool, to protect them from moisture, from pests, from the countless threats that could turn plenty into famine overnight. Another room shows signs of having been a workshop, where perhaps textiles were woven, where tools were maintained, where the countless small tasks that maintain a household were performed with patience and skill. Hooks in the walls suggest looms, shelves, storage for the materials and implements of daily craft. This was not just a place of work, but a place of creation, of transformation, of the small miracles that turn raw materials into the necessities and comforts of life. The air in this room feels different, charged somehow with the concentration of countless hours of careful attention, of skilled hands performing familiar tasks, of minds focused on problems of design and execution. You can almost see them. The weavers, fingers flying through warp and weft, creating patterns that would have been both beautiful and meaningful, encoding in cloth the symbols and stories that defined our culture, their identity, their connection to the sacred. You sit for a moment in this workshop, feeling the presence of all those who labored here, understanding that work, when performed with love and attention, becomes a form of prayer, a way of participating in the ongoing creation of the world. These ancient craftspeople understood something that modern life often forgets: that there is no separation between the sacred and the secular, that every task, no matter how humble, has the potential to become an offering, a blessing, a contribution to the beauty and meaning of existence. Moving on, you discover rooms that seem to have had more specialized functions. A space where perhaps healing was practiced, where herbs were dried and medicines prepared, where the sick came to be tended, where the ancient knowledge of plant and stone and star was applied to the relief of human suffering. The walls here bear traces of soot, evidence of fires that burned not for cooking or warmth, but for transformation, for the alchemical processes that turned simple plants into powerful medicines. Niches carved into these walls would have held the tools of healing, mortars for grinding, vessels for mixing, containers for the precious compounds that could mean the difference between life and death. This room is a testament to the sophistication of ancient medicine, to the deep understanding these people had of the connection between mind and body, between spiritual health and physical well-being. You breathe deeply in this space, and the air seems to carry still faint traces of herbs, of incense, of the aromatic compounds that once filled these walls with their healing presence. It is as if the very atoms of this place remember their sacred purpose, continue to offer comfort and restoration to any who enter with reverence, with need, with faith in the power of ancient wisdom. Another room reveals itself to have been set aside for more purely spiritual purposes. The floor here is marked with circular patterns, mandala-like designs that would have guided meditation, prayer, the inward journey that complements and balances the outward work of daily life. This was where the family came to connect with the divine, to seek guidance, to offer thanks, to remember their place in the great web of existence that connects all beings, all things, all moments across time and space. The walls of this prayer room are unmarked by the utilitarian necessities that characterize the other spaces. Here, decoration was purely spiritual, designed to elevate the mind, to inspire the heart, to create an atmosphere conducive to transcendence. Simple geometric patterns, perfectly proportioned, create a sense of harmony, of balance, of the mathematical beauty that underlies all creation. You kneel in the center of this room, feeling the power of place, the accumulated energy of centuries of prayer, of meditation, of sincere seeking after truth and meaning. The silence here is different from the silence in other parts of the house. It is pregnant, expectant, as if the very air were listening, waiting, ready to receive whatever offering of attention, whatever gift of presence you might bring to this sacred space. In this stillness, in this silence that is full of possibility, you begin to understand something essential about the people who lived in these houses. They were not primitive, not undeveloped, not lacking in sophistication. They were simply different. Their sophistication lay not in technology, but in wisdom, not in complexity, but in integration, not in accumulation, but in appreciation. I lived close to the earth, but also close to the heavens. They understood their dependence on the natural world, but also their responsibility to it. They built homes that were part of the landscape. that worked with rather than against the forces of nature, and enhanced rather than diminished the beauty and harmony of their desert environment. Rising from your meditation, you continue exploring, moving from house to house, from room to room, each space revealing new aspects of this remarkable civilization. In one dwelling, you find evidence of literacy, of record keeping, of the careful attention to memory that allows cultures to grow and develop across generations. Tablets, fragments of written material, testimony to the importance these people placed on preserving knowledge, on passing wisdom from parent to child, from teacher to student, from one generation to the next. The script is unfamiliar, mysterious, but the intention behind it is unmistakable. These are records of transactions, of births and deaths, of seasonal observations, of the countless small details that make up the substance of communal life. But they are also more than that. They are attempts to capture in permanent form the fleeting insights, the precious moments of understanding, the accumulated wisdom of a people who lived thoughtfully, deliberately, with full awareness of life's preciousness and fragility. You handle these fragments with infinite care, understanding that you are touching not just clay and ink, but the very thoughts of people who died thousands of years ago. Their words, their ideas, their carefully preserved observations bridge the vast gulf of time, making them suddenly, surprisingly, immediately present. They speak across the centuries with voices as clear and urgent as if they were standing beside you, sharing their concerns, their hopes, their hard-won understanding of how to live well in a challenging world. In another house, you discover what appears to have been a library, or at least a room dedicated to the storage and study of written materials. Shelves carved into the walls would have held scrolls, tablets, the collected knowledge of generations. This was where the community's memory lived, where its wisdom was preserved, where young minds came to learn from the accumulated experience of their ancestors. The room has a different quality, a sense of reverence, of respect for learning, for the power of written words to preserve and transmit the insights that make civilization possible. You can imagine scholars here, bent over their texts, copying important passages, adding their own observations, participating in the great conversation that connects all thinkers, all seekers, all those who dedicate their lives to the pursuit of truth and understanding. Dust motes dance in the shafts of light that penetrate this ancient study, and you fancy that they are the physical manifestation of all those thoughts, all those ideas, all those moments of insight that once filled this space with intellectual energy. The very air seems charged with curiosity, with the excitement of discovery, with the deep satisfaction that comes from understanding something previously mysterious, previously hidden. You sit at what might have been a writing desk, feeling the smooth depressions worn into the stone by countless hours of scholarly work. Your fingers trace patterns in the accumulated dust, and for a moment, you feel connected to all those who have sat in this same spot, pursued the same quest for knowledge, experienced the same joy in learning, in growing, in becoming more than they were before. The day has progressed, and the light in the houses has changed, become more golden, more warm, more forgiving. The harsh edges of midday have softened into the gentle embrace of afternoon, and the ancient walls seem to glow from within, as if illuminated by some inner fire, some eternal flame that burns in all places where humans have lived with love, with hope, with dedication to something larger than themselves. You make your way back outside, into the narrow streets that wind between the houses. The exploration of these intimate spaces has changed you somehow, has given you a deeper appreciation for the complexity, the richness, the profound humanity of this ancient civilization. These were not simple people living simple lives. They were complex beings grappling with the same fundamental questions that face every generation. How do we live well? How do we love fully? How do we create meaning in the face of mortality? How do we build something lasting in a world of constant change? Their answers, written in clay and stone, in the layout of their homes, in the tools they crafted, in the beauty they created, speak across the centuries with startling relevance. Their wisdom, born of close observation and careful thought, offers guidance to any who have eyes to see, hearts to understand, souls willing to listen to the whispered teachings of the past. The shadows are growing longer now, reaching across the narrow streets like fingers extending toward some distant goal. The houses around you seem to settle deeper into their foundations, to become more solid, more permanent, more eternally present. You understand now that these are not ruins, not relics, not dead remnants of a vanished past. They are living testimonies, ongoing conversations, continuing invitations to remember what it means to be human, to be mortal, to be part of the great family that includes all who have ever lived, all who live now, all who will ever live. And as the second chapter of your journey through the burnt city draws toward its close, you carry with you the intimate knowledge of how these people lived, the deep appreciation for their wisdom, their skill, their profound understanding of what makes a house a home, what makes a community a culture, what makes a life worth living. You have walked through their most private spaces, have touched the tools of their daily work, have breathed the air still fragrant with their dreams and aspirations. The city has welcomed you into its most secret heart, has shared with you its most precious treasures, not gold or silver or precious stones, but something far more valuable: the accumulated wisdom of generations who learned how to live in harmony with themselves, with each other, with the natural world that sustained and challenged them. Their legacy lives on in these clay and stone testimonies, waiting patiently for anyone willing to listen, to learn, to carry their insights forward into the future. The sun continues its eternal journey toward the western horizon, and you continue yours through the sacred streets of Shahr-e Sukhteh, both of you participating in the great dance of time, both of you essential elements in the ongoing story that connects all moments, all places, all hearts across the vast expanse of human experience. The houses of clay and ashes have spoken their truths, have shared their secrets, have invited you deeper into the mystery that is life itself. Chapter 3. Hirmand, the River of Life. The gentle sound reaches you first, before you see it, before you fully understand what draws your feet toward the eastern edge of the city. A soft murmuring, like distant conversation, like whispered secrets, like the voice of the earth itself sharing its most ancient stories. You follow this sound through streets that gradually widen, through walls that grow lower, through spaces that open like cupped palms toward the horizon, and then, suddenly, gloriously, you see it. The Hirmand River, flowing as it has flowed for millennia, carrying the lifeblood of this desert land, connecting mountain to sea, past to present, dream to reality. Its waters catch the afternoon light and scatter it back to the sky in countless tiny mirrors, each one reflecting a fragment of eternity, a glimpse of the infinite, a reminder that some things continue, endure, persist despite all the changes that time brings to the world. You approach slowly, reverently, understanding that you are drawing near to something sacred, something essential, something that has witnessed the entire history of human habitation in this place. The river has seen the first mud bricks shaped on its banks, the first crops planted in its fertile delta, the first boats launched upon its welcoming waters. It has carried the hopes and dreams of generations, has reflected the faces of countless souls who came to it seeking sustenance, seeking transport, seeking the simple blessing of water in a land where water is life itself. The bank slopes gently toward the water, worn smooth by millennia of footsteps, of people coming to fill jars, to water animals, to launch fishing boats, to perform the countless daily rituals that connect human life to the flowing abundance of the river. Your feet find the ancient path, following in the footsteps of farmers and merchants, of children and elders, of all who have ever needed what only this river could provide. At the water's edge, you pause, feeling the presence of the flowing current, hearing the soft music it makes as it moves over stones, around bends, toward destinations both known and unknown. The sound is hypnotic, meditative, a natural mantra that seems to synchronize with your heartbeat, with your breathing, with the very rhythms of life itself. You understand why ancient peoples considered rivers to be divine, to be the visible presence of gods walking through the landscape, bringing blessing wherever they passed. You kneel beside the water, cupping some in your palms, feeling its coolness, its clarity, its essential aliveness. This water has traveled far to reach this place, has fallen as snow on distant mountains, has percolated through soil and stone, has emerged from springs that bubble up from the earth's hidden depths. It carries within it the memory of clouds, of rain, of the great cycle that connects sky and earth, ocean and mountain, drop and flood in an eternal dance of transformation. Letting the water flow through your fingers, watching it return to the river, you feel yourself becoming part of that same cycle, part of the great circulation that moves through all things, all beings, all moments. Your presence here, beside this ancient waterway, connects you to every person who has ever knelt in this same spot, who has ever drawn sustenance from this same source, who has ever felt gratitude for the simple miracle of flowing water in a desert land. The riverbank stretches in both directions, following curves that speak of patient erosion, of water's gentle but persistent power to shape the land, to carve channels, to create the very geography that makes life possible. Along these banks, you can see the remnants of ancient agricultural terraces, evidence of the sophisticated irrigation systems that allowed this civilization to flourish, to support thousands of people in a land that might otherwise have remained empty, barren, uninhabitable. These agricultural remains tell a story of profound understanding, of careful observation, of the kind of patient experimentation that allows a people to learn how to work with rather than against the forces of nature. The farmers of Shahr-e Sukhteh did not simply plant crops and hope for the best. They studied the river's moods, its seasonal variations, its gifts and its challenges. They learned to read the subtle signs that announced floods, droughts, the optimal times for planting and harvesting. You walk along the ancient irrigation channels, marveling at their elegant simplicity, their perfect functionality. These waterways were not merely utilitarian. They were works of art, expressions of a deep aesthetic sensibility that saw beauty in efficiency, grace in functionality, poetry in the practical solutions to life's fundamental challenges. The people who built these channels understood that human works should enhance rather than diminish the natural beauty of the landscape. The channels wind and curve with mathematical precision, following contours that maximize the distribution of water while minimizing erosion, creating a network that could bring the river's blessing to fields located far from its banks. This was engineering informed by wisdom, technology guided by reverence, innovation balanced by respect for the natural systems that made all life possible. Sitting beside one of these ancient waterways, now dry but still clearly visible, still speaking eloquently of the ingenuity and care with which it was constructed, you imagine the sound it once made, water flowing steadily, purposefully, carrying life to crops, to gardens, to the carefully tended plots where families grew their food, their hope, their security against an uncertain future. Fields that these channels once watered have returned to desert now. But the careful eye can still discern their boundaries, can still see the subtle variations in soil, color, and texture that mark where different crops once grew. Here, perhaps, wheat swayed in the desert wind. There, barley caught the morning light. Beyond, vegetables grew in carefully tended plots, providing variety and nutrition to support a complex society. You close your eyes, and in the afternoon silence, you can almost hear them, the sounds of agricultural abundance, the voices of farmers calling to each other across the fields, the laughter of children helping with the harvest, the songs that made the work lighter, the prayers of gratitude offered as the day's labor drew to a close. All of this is still here, encoded in the landscape, waiting for anyone with the patience to listen, the sensitivity to perceive, the imagination to reconstruct. The river itself continues to flow, indifferent to the civilizations that rise and fall along its banks, yet also somehow conscious of its role as life-giver, as sustainer, as the great constant that makes all other changes possible. Its waters have reflected the faces of countless generations, have carried their boats, their goods, their messages to distant places, have served as highway and boundary, as source and destination, as the liquid thread that weaves communities together across vast distances. You imagine the boats that once plied these waters, loaded with goods from far and wide, pottery from local workshops, textiles woven on family looms, grain from the fertile fields, fish caught in the river's depths. These boats were the lifelines that connected Shahr-e Sukhteh to the wider world, that brought new ideas, new technologies, new stories to enrich the local culture, that carried local products to distant markets, spreading the influence of this desert civilization far beyond its physical boundaries. The merchants who operated these boats were more than simple traders. They were ambassadors of culture, carriers of knowledge, bridges between distant peoples. Their boats carried not just goods, but languages, customs, beliefs, artistic styles, technical innovations. They were the neurons in the vast nervous system of ancient trade that connected civilizations across continents, across cultures, across the seemingly insurmountable barriers of distance and difference. Standing now at the river's edge, you can almost see them, those ancient vessels, loaded with precious cargo, their sails filled with the steady wind that blows across the desert, their crews calling out greetings to the people of Shahr-e Sukhteh as they approached, bringing news from distant lands, stories of strange customs, samples of exotic goods, promises of profit and adventure for any brave enough to join them on their next journey. The river port, now marked only by subtle variations in the riverbank, by carefully arranged stones that once formed quays, by deeper channels that once allowed boats to dock safely. was once a scene of constant activity, of loading and unloading, of negotiation and celebration, of farewell and homecoming. It was here that the local met the global, that the familiar encountered the foreign, that the stable community of Shahr-e Sukhteh connected with the dynamic world of trade and travel. You walk along what would have been the waterfront, trying to imagine the sounds, the smells, the bustling energy of a working port, the creak of rope and wood, the splash of oars, the calls of loading crews, the musical languages of foreign merchants, the laughter of children playing among the cargo, the serious voices of officials checking manifests, recording taxes, ensuring that all transactions followed the established customs and laws. But the river was more than just a commercial highway. It was also the source of spiritual sustenance, the center of religious and ceremonial life. Many ancient cultures worshipped rivers as deities, and the people of Shahr-e Sukhteh would likely have been no exception. The Hirmand was not just water. It was the visible presence of the divine, the flowing embodiment of all that sustains and nurtures life. You find what might have been a ceremonial area, a place where the riverbank has been carefully shaped, where stones have been arranged in patterns that suggest ritual use, where generations of people came to offer prayers, to perform ceremonies, to mark the important transitions in their lives. Births would have been blessed here, marriages celebrated, deaths mourned, seasonal changes acknowledged, the great cycles of human existence honored and integrated into the larger rhythms of the natural world. Stones are warm beneath your touch, heated by centuries of desert sun, smoothed by countless hands that have touched them in prayer, in gratitude, in desperate need. They hold within their crystalline structure the memory of all those moments, all those ceremonies, all those heartfelt communications between human souls and the divine presence they recognized in the flowing water. Sitting among these ceremonial stones, feeling their warmth, their patient endurance, their quiet wisdom, you begin to understand something essential about the relationship between this ancient people and their environment. They did not see themselves as separate from nature, as somehow above or outside the natural systems that sustained them. They understood that they were part of those systems, participants in the great web of interdependence that connects all life. Their reverence for the river was not primitive superstition, but sophisticated ecology. They knew that their survival depended on the health of the waterway, on maintaining the delicate balance between use and preservation, between taking and getting back, between human need and natural sustainability. Their ceremonies were expressions of gratitude, but also commitments to stewardship, promises to protect and preserve the source of their abundance. The afternoon light has begun to change, to deepen, to take on the golden quality that transforms even the most ordinary landscapes. You follow one of these channels inland, away from the river, but still connected to it, still part of the great network that once brought life to the entire region. The channel leads you past the ruins of what might have been a granary, a place where the harvest was stored, where abundance was carefully preserved against times of scarcity. The mud brick walls, though partially collapsed, still clearly show the sophisticated understanding of storage, the harmony between nature and human hands, of ventilation, of pest control that was necessary to preserve grain in this challenging climate. Inside what remains of the granary, you can still see the impressions left by large ceramic storage jars, vessels that could hold enough grain to feed a family through an entire season. The arrangement of these impressions speaks of careful planning, of efficient use of space, of the kind of systematic thinking that turns good intentions into practical results. This was not haphazard storage, but scientific preservation, evidence of a people who understood that survival required not just growing food, but protecting it, maintaining it, distributing it fairly when times of need arose. The presence of such sophisticated storage facilities speaks to something even more important than technical skill. It speaks to social organization, to community planning, to the kind of collective thinking that allows a civilization to prepare for challenges, to weather crises, to maintain stability across generations. The granary represents not just stored grain, but stored security, stored hope, stored confidence in the future. Returning to the river, you notice how the quality of light continues to change, how the water itself seems to become more luminous, more alive, more conscious of its role in the great drama of existence. The current moves with hypnotic rhythm, and you find yourself falling into synchronization with its flow. Your breathing, your heartbeat, your very thoughts beginning to move with the same liquid grace, the same patient persistence, the same confident progress toward unknown, somehow trusted destinations. You wade into the shallows, feeling the cool water around your ankles, feeling the gentle current tugging softly at your legs, inviting you to join its journey, to become part of its endless pilgrimage toward the sea. The riverbed beneath your feet is smooth, polished by countless years of flowing water, by the gentle erosion that slowly but inevitably transforms even the hardest stone into sand, into silt, into the fertile soil that nourishes new life downstream. Small fish dart between your feet, their scales catching fragments of the golden light, transforming them into brief flashes of brilliance before disappearing again into the darker depths. These fish are the descendants of countless generations that have lived in these waters, that have survived floods and droughts, ice ages and warming periods, civilizations that rose and fell along the riverbanks. Standing in the flowing water, you feel yourself becoming part of the river's story, part of its long memory, part of its continuing journey through time and space. Your presence here adds another small chapter to its infinite narrative, another brief verse to its eternal song, another moment of consciousness to its endless meditation on the nature of flow, of change, of persistence within impermanence. The sun has moved lower in the sky now, and its light strikes the water at a more acute angle, creating longer reflections, deeper shadows, more dramatic contrasts between light and dark. The entire scene takes on a quality of heightened reality, of mythic significance, as if you are witnessing not just a river flowing through a landscape, but time itself flowing through the eternal present, carrying all moments, all experiences, all possibilities in its endless current. You think of all those who have stood where you stand now, all those who have felt what you feel, all those who have been moved to reverence by the simple miracle of flowing water in a desert land. Farmers checking the level, planning their irrigation. Merchants calculating the depth for their loaded boats. Children playing in the shallows on hot summer days. Lovers walking hand in hand along the moonlit banks. Old ones sitting quietly, watching the flow, contemplating the passage of time, the certainty of change, the comfort of continuity. All of these moments exist simultaneously in this place, layered like geological strata in the riverbank, accessible to anyone with the sensitivity to perceive, the imagination to reconstruct, the heart to embrace the full complexity of human experience across time. The river holds them all, remembers them all, continues to carry their essence forward into the future, ensuring that nothing truly important is ever lost, that every moment of genuine experience becomes part of the eternal record, part of the infinite story that connects all beings, all times, all places. The afternoon is advancing, and you know that eventually you must leave this magical spot, must continue your journey through the ancient city. But part of you will remain here always. Part of you will continue to flow with the Hirmand, to participate in its endless journey, to contribute your own small verse to its vast and continuing song. The river has claimed you now, has made you part of its story, has invited you into the timeless meditation that is water flowing always toward the sea, carrying all things, all dreams, all hopes toward their ultimate destination in the infinite ocean of being. You step slowly back onto the bank, your feet reluctant to leave the water, your heart reluctant to break the spell of connection, of belonging, of being part of something infinitely larger than your individual existence. But you understand now that the connection cannot be broken, that once you have truly experienced the river's embrace, you carry it with you always. Carry its wisdom, its patience, its confident faith in the journey, its absolute trust in the ultimate destination. The sound of the flowing water follows you as you walk back toward the city, becomes a constant background music, a natural mantra, a reminder of flow, of change, of the patient persistence that eventually overcomes all obstacles, that wears down the hardest stone, that finds a way through any landscape, that never stops, never gives up, never loses faith in the possibility of reaching the sea. And as the third chapter of your journey through the burnt city draws toward its close, you carry with you the blessing of the Hirmand, the wisdom of flowing water, the understanding that life, like rivers, finds its meaning not in the destination, but in the journey, not in arrival, but in movement, not in stasis, but in the endless dance of change within continuity, of transformation within persistence, of becoming within being. The river continues its ancient song, and you continue your walk through the sacred streets of Shahr-e Sukhteh, both of you participants in the great symphony of existence, both of you essential notes in the infinite composition that plays continuously in the spaces between silence and sound, between memory and dream, between what was and what is, and what will always be flowing, always seeking, always finding new ways to express the inexhaustible creativity, a boundless love, the eternal hope that moves through all things like water, flowing always toward the sea. Chapter 4: Eternal Eyes. The Museum of Memory calls to you now, though it is not a building in any conventional sense, not walls and displays and carefully labeled artifacts, but rather a sacred space woven from dust and dreams, from fragments and whispers, from the accumulated presence of all those who have handled these objects with love, with reverence, with the understanding that some things transcend their material form to become windows into the very soul of a civilization. You find yourself drawn to a particular area of the city, a place where the excavations have revealed treasures that speak more eloquently than any written text, more powerfully than any historical account. Objects that have somehow survived the long journey through time, carrying within their clay and stone and metal the essence of the people who created them, who used them, who poured their hopes and dreams and daily lives into their making. The late afternoon light falls gently across these scattered remains, transforming them into something approaching the sacred. Each pottery shard, each fragment of jewelry, each tool worn smooth by countless hands becomes a meditation, a prayer, a doorway into a world that exists now only in the realm of imagination and memory. But how vivid that world becomes when approached with reverence, with patience, with the willingness to listen to what these silent witnesses have to say. That's all. You kneel beside a collection of pottery fragments, their surfaces painted with designs that seem to pulse with their own inner light. Spirals that draw the eye inward toward some central mystery. Geometric patterns that repeat with mathematical precision, revealing a sophisticated understanding of proportion, of harmony, of the underlying order that governs all existence. These are not random decorations, but visual mantras, sacred formulas, attempts to capture and express the invisible patterns that connect all things. Each piece tells its own story. This fragment, painted with flowing lines that might represent water, or wind, or the movement of spirit through matter, was once part of a vessel that held wine for a celebration, water for daily use, grain for the family's sustenance. The hands that shaped it, the mind that conceived its decoration, the heart that guided both, have long since returned to dust. But something of their essence remains, encoded in the clay, waiting to be awakened by sympathetic attention. You hold the fragment carefully, feeling its weight, its texture, the subtle imperfections that mark it as the work of human hands rather than machine. In a world increasingly dominated by mass production, by uniformity, by the elimination of the individual touch, these ancient objects remind you of what is lost when efficiency becomes more important than soul, when speed matters more than love, when the personal is sacrificed to the merely functional. The potter who created this fragment worked slowly, deliberately, with full attention to the task at hand. Each turn of the wheel, each application of paint, each decision about form and decoration was made with consciousness, with intention, with the understanding that this object would outlast its creator, would carry forward into the future some small portion of their vision, their skill, their devotion to beauty. Setting the pottery fragment carefully back in its place, you turn your attention to other treasures. Jewelry, delicate and sophisticated, speaks of personal adornment, elevated to the level of art. Bracelets of gold and silver, earrings that catch and scatter light, necklaces that once rested against the throats of women who understood that beauty is not vanity, but necessity, not decoration, but communication, not superficiality, but depth made visible. A particular bracelet draws your attention, its surface covered with tiny engravings, symbols that might be decorative, or might be meaningful, or might be both. The gold has darkened with age, has taken on a patina that speaks of centuries buried in the earth, of slow chemical changes, of the patient alchemy that time works on all things. But its essential beauty remains, its fundamental integrity, its power to connect across millennia with anyone who appreciates the marriage of skill and vision that it represents. You imagine the woman who once wore this bracelet, how it caught the light as she moved, how it complemented her other ornaments, how it participated in the complex visual language through which she communicated her status, her taste, her connection to the cultural traditions that shaped her identity. She was not simply decorating herself, but participating in an ongoing conversation about beauty, about meaning, about the human need to transform the merely functional into something approaching the sacred. The craftsmanship evident in this small object is extraordinary. Each line engraved with precision, each curve calculated for maximum visual impact, each surface polished to catch and reflect light in specific ways. This was not the work of moments, but of hours, days, perhaps weeks of patient attention. The artisan who created it understood that true beauty cannot be hurried, cannot be shortcuts, must be allowed to emerge through the slow process of careful attention to detail. But it is another object that truly captures your imagination, draws you into deepest contemplation, challenges you to understand something essential about the nature of time, of memory, of the human capacity to speak across centuries through the simple power of image, of symbol, of the eternal gaze that looks out from painted eyes. The prosthetic eye, golden, exquisite, impossibly preserved, rests among the other artifacts like a sleeping star, like a window into another dimension, like a bridge between the world of the living and the realm of eternal watching. Its surface is covered with the most delicate engravings, patterns that seem to shift and change as the light moves across them, creating the illusion of life, of consciousness, of awareness that transcends the boundaries of death. This extraordinary object tells a story of compassion, of technical skill, of the profound humanity that characterized this ancient civilization. Someone, perhaps a young woman, lost an eye, and the community responded not with pity or abandonment, but with love made manifest in gold and artistry. They created for her this marvel of ancient technology, this proof that disability need not mean diminishment, that loss can be transformed into beauty, that the human spirit can triumph over any challenge when supported by communal care and individual creativity. You lean closer, studying the intricate details, marveling at the sophistication of both the concept and the execution. This was not merely a replacement eye, but a work of art, a statement of defiance against fate, a proclamation that every human being deserves to feel beautiful, to feel whole, to feel valued by their community. The person who commissioned this object, the artisan who created it, the woman who wore it, all participated in a moment of profound affirmation, of love, of hope. But there is more, much more, that speaks to you from among these scattered treasures, painted pottery, fragments of frescoes, small sculptures, each one a doorway into the rich inner life of this vanished people. Their art was not separate from their daily existence, not reserved for special occasions or special spaces. It was woven into the fabric of ordinary life, transformed the mundane into the magical, made every meal, every task, every moment an opportunity for beauty. A painted bowl, its interior decorated with swimming fish, transforms the simple act of eating into participation in the aquatic realm. The diner becomes temporarily immersed in underwater mystery, surrounded by creatures that move with liquid grace through their blue-green world. This is art as transformation, as transportation, as temporary escape from the limitations of terrestrial existence. Another vessel, painted with birds in flight, lifts the user's consciousness skyward, invites identification with winged creatures that know no boundaries, that move freely between earth and heaven, that carry messages between the human realm and the divine. To drink from such a cup is to participate, however briefly, in the freedom of flight, the joy of movement through 3 dimensions, the ecstasy of soaring above earthbound concerns. The sophistication of these artistic visions speaks to a culture that valued not just survival, not just prosperity, but transcendence. They understood that humans need more than food and shelter, more than security and companionship. They need beauty, they need meaning, they need connection to something larger than their individual existence. And they found ways to weave these needs into the most basic activities of daily life. You move among these artifacts like a pilgrim visiting shrines, each object offering its own teaching, its own insight into the nature of human creativity, of the impulse to transform raw materials into vessels of meaning, of the eternal dialogue between utility and beauty that characterizes all truly human endeavors. These anonymous artists, these nameless craftspeople, speak to you across the centuries with voices as clear as if they were standing beside you, sharing their techniques, their inspirations, their profound understanding of what it means to live a life dedicated to the creation of beauty. A set of gaming pieces, carved from bone and decorated with precious inlays, tells of leisure time, of playfulness, of the human need for competition and entertainment. But even these simple objects have been elevated through artistry, transformed from mere gaming equipment into small sculptures, tiny works of art that brought beauty into moments of relaxation and social interaction. The games these pieces were used to play are lost to time, their rules forgotten, their strategies vanished. But their existence speaks to something enduring, something eternal about human nature. We are creatures who play, who compete, who seek pleasure in the company of others, who find ways to make even simple pastimes into opportunities for beauty, for craftsmanship, for the expression of cultural values. Musical instruments, or fragments thereof, speak to another essential aspect of human experience, the need for sound, for rhythm, for melody, for the kind of expression that words cannot capture. A flute, its finger holes worn smooth by countless performances, carried the breath of long-dead musicians into melodies that once filled these streets with joy, with sorrow, with the full range of human emotion made audible. You hold this ancient flute, feeling its weight, its balance, imagining the lips that once touched its mouthpiece, the fingers that once danced across its holes, the lungs that once filled it with the breath of life. Music is perhaps the most ephemeral of all arts, existing only in the moment of performance, vanishing as soon as the last note fades. Yet this simple instrument has survived, carrying within its hollow body the potential for infinite melodies, infinite moments of beauty. infinite connections between performer and audience, between heart and heart, between soul and soul. The afternoon light has deepened now, taken on the golden quality that transforms everything it touches. The artifacts around you seem to glow from within, as if the creativity that went into their making has been awakened by your attention, by your reverence, by your willingness to see them not as mere objects, but as messages, as gifts, as invitations to remember what it means to live with full consciousness, full creativity, full appreciation for the miracle of existence. But it is the eyes that call to you most powerfully, painted eyes that look out from pottery fragments, carved eyes that gaze from small sculptures, the eternal eyes that seem to see not just the surface of things, but their essence, their meaning, their connection to the great web of being that encompasses all existence. These eyes have been watching, waiting, holding vigil through the long night of history, preserving within their painted pupils the consciousness of a civilization, the awareness of a people, the eternal gaze of humanity itself. There is something in these painted eyes that transcends their material existence, something that speaks to the deepest levels of human recognition, of soul calling to soul across the vast expanses of time. When you look into these eyes, you are not seeing the work of ancient artists. You are seeing the artists themselves, their consciousness, their awareness, their eternal presence made visible through pigment and clay, through gold and stone, through the alchemy of creation that transforms raw materials into vessels of spirit. One pair of eyes in particular holds your attention, draws you into prolonged contemplation, challenges you to understand something essential about the nature of consciousness, of awareness, of the eternal witness that looks out from behind all human eyes. These eyes, painted with extraordinary skill and sensitivity, seem alive, seem aware, seem to be looking directly at you across 5,000 years with an expression of profound recognition, of welcome, of love, of. They are painted on a small ceramic figurine, a representation of a young woman, perhaps a goddess, perhaps an ordinary person elevated through art to divine status. The figurine itself has been damaged by time, pieces missing, surface worn, but the eyes remain perfect, untouched by age, as fresh and vital as the day they were painted. As if the artist's intention to create something eternal has been fulfilled, has transcended the limitations of matter, has achieved a kind of immortality through the power of conscious creation. You find yourself unable to look away from these painted eyes. They seem to see not just your physical presence, but your thoughts, your feelings, your deepest longings and fears. They offer not judgment, but understanding, not criticism, but compassion, not rejection, but acceptance. They are the eyes of the Eternal Mother, the Divine Feminine. a nurturing consciousness that embraces all beings with unconditional love. In these eyes, you see reflected all the eyes that have ever looked upon this figurine, all the hands that have ever held it, all the hearts that have ever found comfort in its presence. The ancient artist who painted them, the person who commissioned the work, the countless individuals who have gazed upon it over the centuries, all are present in this moment. All participate in the eternal now that exists outside of linear time. All contribute to the accumulated meaning that transforms this simple object into something approaching the sacred. The longer you gaze into these painted eyes, the more you understand about the nature of art, of consciousness, of the human capacity to create objects that transcend their material limitations, that become windows into other dimensions, other ways of being, other possibilities for existence. These eyes do not simply decorate the figurine, they animate it, give it life, transform it from a mere object into a presence, a consciousness, a being that continues to offer its gifts to any who approach it with openness, with reverence, with the willingness to be transformed by beauty. Time seems to slow, to thicken, to become more present, more conscious, more alive. The museum of memory around you, this scattered collection of fragments and treasures, begins to coalesce into something greater than the sum of its parts. The individual objects, pottery and jewelry, tools and instruments, figurines and eyes, begin to speak with unified voice, to tell a single story, to offer a collective teaching about what it means to be human, to be creative, to be conscious in a universe that offers infinite possibilities for beauty, for meaning, for connection. You understand now that you are not simply looking at artifacts from a dead civilization. You are participating in an ongoing conversation, a continuing relationship, a living exchange between past and present, between the consciousness that created these objects and the consciousness that recognizes their beauty, appreciates their significance, carries their message forward into the future. The creators of these treasures, these anonymous artists and craftspeople, continue to live through their work, continue to speak through the objects they made with such love, such skill, such dedication to the ideal of beauty. They have achieved a kind of immortality, not through monuments or inscriptions, but through the more subtle, more powerful, more enduring medium of conscious creation, of love made manifest in clay and gold, in pigment and stone, in the eternal language of art that speaks directly to the soul. As the fourth chapter of your journey through the burnt city draws toward its close, you carry with you the blessing of these eternal eyes, the wisdom of conscious creation, the understanding that beauty is not luxury, but necessity, not decoration, but communication, not superficiality, but the visible manifestation of the invisible truths that give meaning to existence. The painted eyes continue to watch, to witness, to offer their gift of recognition to any who have the wisdom to see, the courage to look, the heart to receive the love that flows eternally from consciousness to consciousness, from soul to soul, from the eternal now that exists in all moments of true seeing, true recognition, true connection with the miracle of existence itself. Chapter 5. Twilight over the silent city. The day begins its slow surrender to evening, and with it, something in the very air of Shahr-e Sukhteh begins to change, to deepen, to take on the quality of dreams. The light grows softer, more forgiving, more golden, transforming the ancient ruins into something that exists somewhere between memory and vision, between history and myth, between the solid reality of stone and clay and the infinite possibilities of imagination. You find yourself drawn upward, climbing the gentle slope that leads to the highest point of the city, where ancient walls catch the last rays of sunlight and hold them like cupped hands holding water, like vessels designed to preserve the essence of illumination against the coming darkness. Each step takes you higher, farther from the earth, closer to the sky, deeper into the liminal space where day transitions to night, where consciousness transitions to dream, where the boundaries between self and world begin to dissolve. The city spreads below you now, a vast mandala of walls and streets, of spaces and silences, of presence and absence, woven together into a pattern that speaks to something deeper than rational understanding, something that bypasses the analytical mind and communicates directly with the soul. This is not merely the remains of an ancient settlement, but a sacred geography, a map of consciousness itself, laid out in mud and stone for any who have the wisdom to read its symbolic language. From this elevated perspective, you begin to see patterns that were invisible from ground level, connections that reveal the underlying intelligence that guided the city's growth, streets that curve and intersect according to principles that seem both mathematical and mystical, districts that cluster around centers of spiritual or commercial significance, waterways that flow through the urban landscape like arteries carrying the lifeblood of civilization, all of it designed with an awareness that physical spaces shape consciousness, that the places we inhabit influence the people we become. The Hirmand River gleams in the distance, its surface catching and reflecting the evening light like a ribbon of liquid gold. From here, you can see how the city was positioned to take maximum advantage of the river's gifts, how the ancient planners understood the relationship between water and life, between flow and abundance, between the constant movement of the river and the stability of human habitation. The entire landscape reveals itself as a conscious creation, a work of art painted on the canvas of the earth, a collaboration between human intelligence and natural beauty that achieved something greater than either could accomplish alone. The wind moves differently at this height, carrying with it scents and sounds from across the entire valley. The last calls of birds settling for the night, the whisper of sand shifting in the desert beyond, the almost inaudible murmur of the river continuing its eternal journey toward the sea. These sounds blend into a natural symphony, a composition that has been playing continuously for millennia, that will continue long after you have departed, long after the last stone of the city has returned to dust. You settle yourself on what might once have been a ceremonial platform, a place where the community gathered to observe the movements of sun and stars, to mark the passage of seasons, to participate in the great calendar of cosmic events that gave rhythm and meaning to their lives. The stones beneath you are worn smooth by countless gatherings, countless ceremonies, countless moments when human consciousness reached out to touch the infinite. As the sun sinks lower toward the horizon, the entire city begins to glow with an inner light, as if the accumulated warmth of 5,000 years of human habitation has been awakened by the approaching darkness, as if the very stones remember the fires that once burned within these walls, the laughter that once echoed through these streets, the dreams that once blossomed in these rooms like flowers opening to the morning sun. The shadows lengthen, reaching across the ruins like fingers, like memories made visible, like the gentle touch of the past, blessing the present moment with its accumulated wisdom. In this magical hour, in this golden time between day and night, the boundary between what was and what is becomes permeable, allowing glimpses of the city as it once existed, alive, thriving, filled with the bustling energy of human community. You close your eyes, and in the gathering twilight, you can almost hear them, the voices of the ancient inhabitants, calling to each other across the narrow streets. A mother calls her children home as darkness falls, her voice carrying love and concern across the centuries. A merchant counts the day's profits while planning tomorrow's journey, his calculations mixing practical necessity with dreams of distant markets, of exotic goods, of stories to tell around future fires. A potter shapes clay on her wheel, her hands moving with the rhythm of creation itself, bringing forth vessels that will outlast their creator, that will carry beauty into futures she can barely imagine. All of this exists simultaneously in this moment, in this place where time has become fluid, where past and present flow together like streams converging into a single river. You are no longer simply observing, no longer merely visiting. You have become part of the eternal present, part of the ongoing story, part of the consciousness that connects all beings across the vast expanse of history. The sun touches the horizon now, transforming the western sky into a canvas of rose and gold, of amber and crimson, of colors that seem to exist nowhere else, that appear only in these moments of transition, these times of sacred change. The entire landscape is illuminated by this supernatural light. Every ruin, every fragment, every grain of sand transformed into something precious, something sacred, something that speaks to the deepest levels of human recognition. In this extraordinary light, you begin to see the city as it truly is, not a ruin, but a teaching, not a remnant, but a revelation, not an ending, but a beginning. The ancient builders created more than shelter, more than community, more than civilization. They created a meditation made manifest in stone and clay, a prayer written in the language of architecture, a love letter addressed to future generations, to anyone with the wisdom to read between the lines, to hear the whispered teachings that echo still in the spaces between the walls. The buildings themselves become transparent, revealing not just their physical structure, but their spiritual architecture, the invisible patterns of intention and meaning that guided their construction. Every wall, every room, every carefully placed stone participates in a larger design, a greater purpose, a cosmic blueprint that connects the human realm with the divine order that governs all existence. You understand now that Shahr-e Sukhteh was never simply a city. It was a mandala, a sacred diagram, a three-dimensional representation of the harmony that exists when human consciousness aligns itself with natural law, with divine purpose, with the eternal principles that create order out of chaos, beauty out of randomness, meaning out of the apparent meaninglessness of mere existence. The people who lived here, who built these walls, their sophistication lay not in complexity, but in integration, not in analysis, but in synthesis, not in separation, but in connection. They understood something that modern civilization often forgets, that true advancement comes not from conquering nature, but from learning to dance with it, not from imposing human will upon the world, but from discovering how human creativity can participate in the ongoing creation of the universe itself. As the sun sinks lower, the sky deepens through a spectrum of colors that seem to have no names, that exist only in these moments of transition, only in these sacred interludes when the ordinary world reveals its extraordinary essence. The city below glows like a collection of jewels, like fragments of stars fallen to earth, like pieces of eternity scattered across the landscape, for any who have eyes to see, hearts to understand, souls capable of recognizing the eternal within the temporal. A wind shifts, bringing with it new fragrances, new whispers, new invitations to deeper listening. You breathe in the essence of sage and sand, of clay and time, of all the dreams that have been dreamed in this place, all the hopes that have been cherished, all the love that has been expressed in countless small acts of daily devotion to family, to craft, to beauty, to the sacred task of living consciously in an unconscious world. A bird calls from somewhere in the ruins below, its voice piercing the evening stillness with a note of pure beauty, pure presence, pure aliveness. For a moment, you and the bird and the ancient city and the flowing river and the setting sun all exist within a single moment of perfect awareness, perfect harmony, perfect recognition of the underlying unity that connects all things, all beings, all possibilities within the vast embrace of existence itself. This moment, this recognition, this sudden flowering of consciousness seems to last forever, seems to contain within itself all moments, all recognitions, all flowerings that have ever occurred or ever will occur. You are no longer bound by the limitations of individual identity, individual history, individual perspective. You have become part of something infinitely larger, infinitely more beautiful, infinitely more meaningful than any single life could contain. And yet, paradoxically, this expansion of awareness makes you more yourself than you have ever been, more present, more alive, more capable of appreciating the precious gift of consciousness, of awareness, of the ability to recognize beauty, to create meaning, to participate consciously in the great dance of existence. You are simultaneously dissolved and concentrated, expanded and focused, lost and found in the same eternal moment. The sun has nearly reached the horizon now, its lower edge beginning to disappear behind the distant mountains. The light continues to change, to deepen, to take on qualities that transform everything it touches. The ruins around you seem to pulse with their own inner illumination, as if the stone itself has become conscious, has awakened to participate in this moment of cosmic transition, this daily resurrection of beauty from the marriage of light and shadow, of presence and absence, of being and becoming. You realize that this is what the ancient builders intended, this moment, this recognition, this sudden awakening to the sacred nature of existence itself. They created not just a city, but a teaching device, a machine for generating moments of transcendence, spaces designed to facilitate the recognition of beauty, the appreciation of mystery, the direct experience of the divine presence that moves through all things like breath through the body of the world. Every street, every building, every carefully crafted object was designed with this moment in mind. This twilight recognition, this sunset awakening to the extraordinary nature of ordinary existence. They understood that consciousness requires beauty to flourish, that the soul needs wonder to remain alive, and human beings must have access to experiences that transcend the merely practical, the merely necessary, the merely logical. The sun touches the horizon, begins to sink below the visible world, and as it does, the entire landscape undergoes a final transformation. The city becomes luminous, translucent, more like a vision than a physical place, more like a dream than a historical site, more like a prayer than a collection of ruins. In this magical moment, in this sacred transition, the boundaries between matter and spirit, between past and present, between dreamer and dream, dissolve completely. You are floating now, suspended in the golden air of twilight, held aloft by the accumulated love, of all those who have ever recognized beauty, ever created meaning, ever participated consciously in the great work of civilization, which is not the building of cities, or the accumulation of wealth, or the conquest of territories, but the patient, persistent, never-ending task of creating spaces where souls can flourish, where consciousness can expand, where the divine nature of existence can be recognized, celebrated, shared. The last sliver of sun disappears, and with it, the ordinary world. The city around you becomes purely visionary, a landscape of light and shadow, of memory and possibility, of all that has been and all that might yet be. You are no longer visiting an archaeological site. Stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, the same stars that shone down upon the original inhabitants of Shahr-e Sukhteh, the same constellations that guided their navigation, marked their seasons, inspired their myths and stories and dreams. In the growing darkness, you feel the presence of countless generations, countless souls who have looked up at these same stars and wondered, hoped, dreamed, loved. The city settles into night, but it does not sleep. It continues to pulse with its own inner rhythm, its own heartbeat, its own breathing. It has become more alive in the darkness, more present, more conscious, as if the night has awakened something that daylight could only hint at, some deeper truth, some more profound mystery, some more essential teaching about the nature of existence, of consciousness, of the eternal dance between light and shadow, between being and non-being, between the known and the unknowable. You remain on your elevated perch, no longer fully in your body, no longer entirely separate from the ancient city, no longer bound by the normal limitations of individual identity. You have become part of the story, part of the ongoing meditation, part of the eternal witness that observes the endless cycle of creation and destruction, of building and decay, of dream and awakening that characterizes all existence, all history, all consciousness. The night deepens, and with it, your understanding, your perception expands to encompass not just the visible ruins, but the invisible presence that animates them. Not just the historical facts, but the eternal truths they embody. Not just the ancient past, but the timeless present that contains all possibilities, all potentials, all dreams that have ever been dreamed or ever will be dreamed by conscious beings anywhere in the universe. In this expanded awareness, you realize that Shahr-e Sukhteh is not unique, not isolated, not separate from the larger story of consciousness evolving, growing, awakening to its own nature. Cities like this have existed, do exist, will continue to exist wherever beings capable of recognizing beauty come together to create spaces for the soul to flourish. They are the inevitable expression of consciousness becoming aware of itself, of the universe awakening to its own magnificent nature. The desert wind moves through the ruins with a sound like distant music, like whispered prayers, like the breathing of the earth itself. It carries with it the essence of all that has transpired in this place, all the joy and sorrow, all the hope and fear, all the love and loss that make up the human experience. But it carries something else as well, something that transcends the personal, the historical, the merely human. It carries the essence of consciousness itself, the pure awareness that witnesses all experiences without being diminished by them, that embraces all possibilities without being limited by them, that loves all beings without being depleted by the loving. This is what the ancient builders were really creating, not just a city, but a space where this recognition could occur, where souls could remember their essential nature, where consciousness could recognize itself in the infinite mirror of existence. As the night reaches its full depth, as the stars achieve their maximum brilliance, as the ancient city settles into its eternal meditation, you understand that your journey through Shahr-e Sukhteh has been more than exploration, more than education, more than even inspiration. It has been initiation, awakening, transformation. You came as a visitor, but you leave as part of the eternal community, part of the ongoing story, part of the consciousness that connects all beings across time and space and the apparent limitations of individual existence. The city will remain, will continue its patient teaching, will offer its gifts to future pilgrims, future seekers, future souls ready to recognize the extraordinary within the ordinary, the eternal within the temporal, the divine within the apparently mundane. Your footsteps will join the countless others that have blessed these streets. Your attention will add to the accumulated love that makes these ruins more than mere stone and clay. Your recognition will contribute to the ongoing awakening that is the deepest purpose, the highest calling, the most sacred responsibility of consciousness wherever it appears. And as the fifth and final chapter of your journey through the burnt city draws to its close, as twilight surrenders completely to the star-filled darkness, as the ancient walls settle into their eternal vigil, you carry with you not just memories but transformation, not just information but wisdom, not just experiences, but a new understanding of what it means to be human, to be conscious, to be capable of recognizing and creating beauty in a universe that offers infinite opportunities for both wonder and awakening. The silent city continues its meditation, continues its teaching, continues its patient offering of gifts to any who approach with open hearts, with receptive minds, with souls ready to be transformed by beauty, by mystery, by the recognition that consciousness itself is the greatest miracle, the most profound mystery, the most sacred gift in all the vast expanse of existence. Your journey ends, but the story continues. The twilight over the silent city becomes the dawn of new understanding, new possibility, new recognition of the eternal nature of consciousness, of beauty, of love. And in that recognition, in that awakening, in that moment of profound seeing, you understand that you have not been visiting ruins, but participating in resurrection, not observing the past, but creating the future. Not simply walking through an ancient city, but helping to build the eternal city that exists wherever consciousness recognizes its own divine nature, its own infinite potential, its own endless capacity for love, for beauty, for the creation of spaces where souls can flourish, where hearts can open, where the miracle of existence can be celebrated, honored, shared with all beings, everywhere across the vast and beautiful cosmos that is our true home. The stars continue their ancient dance. The wind continues its eternal song. The city continues its patient meditation, and consciousness continues its endless journey toward ever greater recognition of its own magnificent nature, its own infinite possibilities, its own eternal capacity for love, for beauty, for the creation of meaning in an apparently meaningless universe, for the generation of hope in the face of uncertainty, for the celebration of existence itself as the greatest gift, the most profound blessing, the most sacred opportunity that consciousness could ever receive, or ever twilight over the silent city, where endings become beginnings, where silence speaks more eloquently than words, where the eternal conversation between consciousness and creation continues always, forever, world without end, in the infinite embrace of existence itself, twilight over tiers of tears,